I'm sorry, Ms. Tokuda from Hawaii.
Thank you very much, Chair. Once again, we find ourselves being faced by our Republican colleagues that have convened another hearing under the guise of investigating the pandemic's origins to advance their extreme conspiratorial narrative against Dr. Fauci, Dr. Collins, and our nation's scientists and public health experts. I'd like to take a bit of a moment during my time to set the record straight about a number of things that have been said today. First of all, one of the things we heard earlier was that scientists don't flip-flop. No, scientists focus on the facts and the data before them, which can change in a matter of 72 hours, or yes, even 45 days between the time of discussion and the time of report, especially when we are dealing with a virus we know very little about, that even until this day is rapidly changing and evolving. So I ask both of you to assert coercion or political persuasion as the result of why that change took place during these 72 hours. Is this, in fact, a false statement when we're considering just the way that the scientific process works and the rapidly evolving, changing, and rapid evolving information that we're having at that time took place?
I think, again, it's important to understand that it's our thinking that is evolving. We are talking about the change from early hypotheses to realize that a subset of those can, in our opinion, be discarded with a relatively high degree of confidence. And that happens within just a few days when we're specifically talking about a purposefully manipulated virus. That's an evolution of our thinking. It is not a flip-flop. It is an early hypothesis which ends up being unsupported, followed by other hypotheses that are still on the table.
And so isn't it important that we, in fact, support this evolution of our thinking and our research in order for us to more quickly be able to really ascertain the proximal origins of things like the COVID-19 virus to start to really begin to save lives?
I think it's important that we continue to consider any and all evidence known and potentially to come in future. And that is exactly what we are doing as the scientific community, which may end up with previous hypotheses all of a sudden being no longer supported, for example. This is not a flip-flop. This is simply the scientific process.
So one of my concerns is when politicians start throwing around words like flip-flop, we are actually creating a very chilling effect on the scientific process, on our scientific community. I share the concerns that have been raised in this hearing by our ranking member, by the good gentleman from Maryland, that we're poisoning the water when it comes to active research and science that is looking at saving lives, taking care of our people. I worry that politicians' continued overreach and, quite frankly, weaponization of the discussions around the origin of COVID-19 will, in fact, heighten this chilling effect on the ability for our scientists and public health officials to thoroughly investigate and study future disease outbreaks, public health crises, and be able to meaningfully connect that and convey that to the public. Dr. Gary and Dr. Anderson, do you think political weaponization of the origins of COVID-19 will have a chilling effect on our scientific research, international collaborations going forward, and quite frankly, result in lives lost, our inability to really respond to public health crisis when it arises?
You know, I'm a scientist. You know, I try not to let all the din of the politics around me influence my, my analyses, my experiments, the choices that I make when I, work together with other scientists to write a publication. So, I understand what you're saying about the politics being influenced, but I can tell you that we did not let those factors influence our writing of the Proximal Origins paper or any of the other papers in Science and PNAS and the other journals that we've written and influence our thinking about the origins of SARS-CoV-2 in any way.
Dr. Anderson, did you want to respond?
I think the whole reason I'm here today is because it's been politicized.
Mm-hmm.
The title is The Proximal Origin of a Cover-Up. I think there's no question that whereas the science itself is a scientific process focused on evidence analyses and then publications in peer-reviewed journals, which is exactly what we have been doing. People are free to disagree with that, whether it's the intelligence community or other scientists. That's why we publish the papers. I think, again, the reason why I'm here today is because of that politicization of that whole process, and I think it is deeply damaging. I think there's a need to rebuild trust. I think it's important to understand that scientists and politicians need to work together. And I think the way to do that, I think, is just focus on the facts and focus on the actual evidence.
Thank you. I think we absolutely do have to focus on the facts. I think that for researchers like yourself and others going forward, have to double think what they put on their Slack messages and channels and their emails and their text threads, and instead not be distracted from the actual work of the research. What it'll end up is lives lost. It'll cost us time to actually getting to what the origins of these disease and public health crises are. So we have to stop the weaponization of the origins of COVID-19 discussion. Thank you, Chair. I yield back.
I now recognize Mr.